Hello, I'm here presenting a flash talk about scenic intentions and costumes agents in the opera Salome. I'm Veridiana. Thanks so much for being here. In 2014, I had the opportunity to design and produce the costumes for the opera Salome at the Municipal Theatre of São Paulo in Brazil, directed by Lívia Sabag. After that experience, I developed an analysis on this production and the one from the Royal Opera House, directed by David McVicker, focusing on these two scenic approaches, aiming to perceive costume as means of expression in the performance. The production at the Royal not only inspired my work as a costume designer, but also provoked me to understand how the dramatic and musical content of an opera Salome can be communicated and developed on the stage through different approaches and visualities. Staging Salome is not a simple mission for a creative team, as it encompasses social, religious, and gender issues. Anyhow, both directors transposed the opera into another historical context, recasting new aesthetic perceptions of the work. By exploring several layers of Salome, they could express all the sensitive aspects of the opera through entirely different scenic intentions for the staging. In this presentation, I mainly emphasize on the agency of Salome's costumes and those that were conceived for the Dance of the Seven Veils scene, considering that this scene is the dramatic turning point of the opera. The scenic approach of Lívia Sabag was inspired by Orientalist iconography of 19th century, setting Herod's court in a slightly fanciful timeless Orient. She explored the contrast between aspects of aridity and sensuality, highlighting the distress of the characters involved in a psychological projection game where emotions and desires are repressed. Regarding the creative process for Salome's costumes, I would like to enhance some aspects. Designing costumes for a character as fascinating as Salome is a challenging task for any costume designer, since she's a young woman whose behavior is mysterious and ambiguous. Moreover, this iconic protagonist is known by the archetype of a femme fatale, thus charged with a mix of fascination and lust. In addition, I was personally challenged by how to combine all facets of Salome's behavior within costumes, considering intrinsic aspects of theatrical practice, such as the need of adapting the dress to the scenic approach as well as corroborating with the scene's movements on the stage, the choice of materials that would better adapt to the design, the different body shapes of the two singers that would wear the same design. Taking that in consideration, I chose to emphasize the dissonance between sophistication and a decadent world, combining chastity and erotic aspects, using Orientalist painting as iconography reference, expressing aesthetic features in a simplified way, thus creating stylized costumes. However, when working with theatrical costume, it's always important to consider that it's a continuous and collaborative process where artistic and technical procedures must be articulated. Also, the agents of costumes must complement aesthetic choices and scenic intentions for the staging. The scenic intention for the dance scene is a sensitive representation of lust and reveals the lewdness related to Hero's world. The setting is permitted by Orientalist atmosphere, emphasizes sensuality, and consequently unfolding a provocative game between Salome and Herod. The veils are an important part of dramaturgical strategy, used to cover the faces of the seven dancers dressed in a similar costumes as Salome, aiming to confuse Herod who is looking for her. Therefore, by taking off the veil, she engages Herod in an alluring game of seduction. On the other hand, McVicker's stage conception was inspired by the aesthetics of 1975 Pasolini's movie Salo or 120 Days of Sodom. According to his approach, Strauss' work is transposed into the context of fascism by building another narrative for the opera, thus concentrating its dramaturgy on the disturbed and repulsive relationship between characters. The costumes express a fusion of opulence and decadence, suggesting through shapes, colors, and textures specificities of the characters, revealing their psychological contradictions, intensify the scenic dramaturgy. In this staging, Salome presents three different costumes that contribute to the dramatic development through their agency, extending their meaning throughout the scenes. The first dress expresses her subjective by revealing a sophisticated young woman combining chastity and erotism within her double personality. During the dance scene, she puts on garments instead of taking them off, changing dresses as if she were a doll, keeping just one veil on the scene. Instead of 7 veils, the stage presents 7 rooms from Salome's memories, taking the implicit erotism out of the scene. The scene suggests the abuse experienced by Salome over her lifetime, and these costumes embodies the dramaturgical idea inherent to her psychological conflicts and behavior subtleties, her repulsion and vulnerability. The second dress, worn by Salome during the dance with Harold, intensifies the dreamlike moment of the scene, being part of the perverse dynamic between both characters. The agency of Salome's sleep dress is perceived especially in the final scene, when the strong image of the white silk gets stained with blood gushed from the severed head of the prophet.